Hello everyone, my name is Chris. I am the owner of the newly started YouTube channel, Chris the PA Writer. I am located in the Pittsburgh, PA area, and I am thinking of doing a video series on some talking points about certain things about the world around us, as we'll discuss some of the things I have been working on as well with my writing platform, Library of Secularia, and its big project, the Third Level Society. The latter I will be discussing in future videos. For right now, though, I am going to be discussing several general topics. So let's get started. So, first topic, horror movies. I saw some horror movies with my sister's fiance's brother and his girlfriend within the past recent weeks. And really, I like them. I really do. They're very thrilling, they're very suspenseful, and honestly, most of them don't scare me, because in most movies, the stuff really is not very realistic. I mean, regardless, I'm drawn in. However, as soon as something supernatural comes up, it just doesn't really scare me anymore. You know, things like conjuring up demons, ghosts haunting houses, demons haunting people wanting to consume souls. However, there was a really good horror movie that I saw a number of years ago. It was called The Orphan. It was I thought it was very realistic. And as far as I remember, there wasn't really a lot of supernatural stuff. I won't spoil the plot, but the plot is really something that can happen in real life, or something very close to something that could happen in real life. So, I mean, that's my take on horror movies. Okay, next topic, nice guys. Basically, we as a society need to learn to unlearn that behavior. For those of you who don't know, or who are not familiar with the term nice guys, they're basically men who feel like women don't want to date them because they are too nice. And they are convinced that women go after the bad boys. And a lot of these people, they rate looks. Like, they assign rating to looks. Like, oh, so-and-so's a 3, so-and-so's a 10. And they do it both for themselves and for other people. And a lot of these nice guys, they feel like they're being unfairly treated. And some even think that a said call for change is needed. And there's just a lot of reasons why this way of thinking is so messed up. I mean, that's really not how the world works. And it's really, it seems like it's a form of indoctrination. For example, the Red Pill Society, which is like the nice guy internet equivalent of Fox News, or Fox Propaganda, as I jokingly call it. And really, it's that way of thinking really actually is not that far away from the far right. In fact, a lot of the nice guys that I saw on Reddit were actually cheering the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And it's really a part of a longer enduring notion of rape culture that I notice exists in Western society. And this rape culture has been going on in Western society for a very, very long time. You know, I've come across a lot of people that have said things like, oh, you have to try harder these days to get women, or, oh, feminism killed our society, it's our downfall, and men even saying things pertaining to, just saying a lot of different things that pertain to things that have happened recently in terms of this. And it just doesn't really make sense. It's a lot of these people that say stuff like that. It's they're either extremely misled, or they're perpetrators. They're being manipulative. But really, basically, this type of rape culture has been around for a very, very long time, and they really use the word feminism and try and assign a bad connotation to it. But really, if you look at the recent past, if you look at society as a whole, it's actually a really good thing. The women's rights movement, it's been a really great, really good thing. And I think the earliest step forward, at least in this country, was advancing the women's right to vote. And I think that was in 1920. There was a constitutional amendment for that, a little over 100 years ago. That was in modern American society. That I think that was like the earliest step forward. And they've fought continuously ever since, gaining more and more inches of progress, especially throughout the 70s and even the early, into the early 90s, really to gain equal footing with men. And contrary to what some people are saying, I really don't see a lot of reverse sexism going on. In fact, even today, there's still there's still traditional old sexism. Women are even today still not treated equally. In fact, this year, obviously this year there's been even a big step backwards. The old male-dominated sexist movement is making a comeback. It's really trying to make a comeback, and it's very manipulative, and it's they are using a lot of false and yet persuasive logic designed to appeal to today's generation. It's really scary to think about it, and my advice for you, when you come across stuff like that, don't fall for it. Just don't take it seriously, or don't fall for it. Don't let yourself start believing it, because it, like I say, it's very, very manipulative, using a lot of false logic, and a lot of people are perpetrating this to achieve bad intentions. So going back to the nice guy community here, really, I have a lot of advice if you find yourself falling into that kind of thinking. Really, first thing I want to say is just be yourself. I know it's cheesy, but think about it. Let's say you succeed in finding someone. If you're not being yourself, you have to consistently adjust yourself in order to maintain such the existing relationship. And that's pretty miserable. And I'm talking like long-term relationships. All day, every day. If you have to constantly adjust yourself, that's pretty miserable. So be yourself. And the next thing I want to bring up is realize attractiveness is based on the perspective of the individual. I mean, hypothetically, you might be a 10 to 1 person, but you might be considered a 3 to somebody else. There's no standard. There's no force out there that's making people be attracted to you to a certain degree or not attracted to you to a certain degree. And by the way, don't rate yourself or others. It really is a bunch of hooey. You're only fooling yourself. And really, that's just not how the world works. There's a lot of psychologists out there that discuss theory of mind, which goes along the lines of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Women are human beings too, with thoughts, feelings, intellect, and capability of making their own decisions. They and men are equals, and the gender doesn't determine what kind of a standing you're in. Gender alone doesn't determine what kind of a standing you're in. And people that think it does, they're not taking into account, like, there's a lot of people that are and I have to be careful bringing this up because I of all people are the least expertise in this. There's a lot of people whose genders and or biological sex don't fall into the male or female category. And that just makes the sexist culture just all the more absurd. It's just that type of toxic culture just really is out of touch with reality. It really is. But men and women are equal. Gender alone doesn't determine your standing in society. Get that in your head. So, what does that mean? Women have a right to say no, and you have to respect that. Look, whether you realize it or not, you have boundaries too, and you set them, consciously or subconsciously, whether you realize it or not. Women have that equal right as well. So you got to understand that. Just like you have a right to make choices, they do too. And once again, if anybody told you differently in the past, they're either misled or they're deliberately being manipulative. It depends on who the person is. There's a lot of bad people out there, and they pretend to be good guys, and that's what makes the real world different from Disney movies. Disney movies, bad guys are going out of their way to show the world that they're bad guys. But in the real world, the bad guys really are going out of their way to try and convince everybody that they're good guys. Okay. And next thing I want to bring up is contrary also to what you may have been told in the past, you don't have to compete for a relationship with somebody. Like, I'm talking romantic relationships. It's not like a trophy that you earn. It's a mutual thing that happens. Just let the opportunity come to you naturally. In fact, if you had to compete, the relationship in question would be doomed to be a very bad one. If you think about it. Again, think long term. And last but not least, in fact, the most important thing, do other enjoyable things in life that don't necessarily have to involve dating, romance, sex. Life is not all about sex. Seriously. I mean, take me for example. I do kayaking, biking, book reading, story writing. Oh, I do too much of that. And by the way, please don't copy me if you're looking at me as an example. Don't emulate me if that doesn't bring you joy. Do things that interest you. There may be hobbies, things that you like that I don't even know exist. Again, just be yourself. I hope my talk on that helped, at least in the tiniest bit, in the effort to kill that toxic culture that's out there, or at least weaken it. Anyway, to a bigger picture, politics. I know a lot of people I talk with are saying that our society is being run like the Hunger Games. I mean, I don't know my stance on that. Honestly, this might make some of you laugh, but I've heard of the Hunger Games, and I kind of have a general idea of what it's about, but I've never watched it or read the books. So I don't know too much right now about the Hunger Games. I might read it and watch it in the future, but what I do know is that it's about keeping it's about a ruling class keeping the ruled classes divided. And what I do know about politics, especially in the USA today, is that both sides, if you know what I mean, both sides, there's a lot of people on both sides that are keeping people divided. A lot of Republican-leaning people are saying and doing stuff they know are going to appeal to only half the population and turn off the other half. Large business figures behind the curtain are paying lobbyists to pay certain Republican-leaning people to do this. And the bullcrap that's appealing to half the population and turning off the other half, that's exactly what they want. And why do they want that? They want the population to be divided. And in many cases, human lives are being sacrificed in the process. It really reminds me of, and I've watched a lot of documentaries on ancient Rome, a lot on the Colosseum, the gladiators. It really reminds me of that. And then going over to the people that lean Democrat. The Democratic Party, and I've seen and read about a lot of history, a lot of historical sources. I really like historical documentaries, by the way. It seems to me that the Democratic Party really used to be pro-workers' rights. There was a lot of progress that was made in the past, around the time of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, of course, I have my reserves about that era. There was a lot of progress in terms of racial equality that hadn't been made yet. There were issues in that time, but there was also a lot of progress made. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. However, it seems to me a lot of things started to change as early as 1980, and controversially even as early as Lyndon B. Johnson. And I think what's going on is a lot of wealthy patrons, a lot of wealthy figures are paying some Democratic-leaning politicians to amend otherwise progressive legislation so that certain wealthy groups dodge financial consequences, such as tax increases. And if you think about it, that's actually a genius tactic favoring corrupt, wealthy figures, because if only a fraction of Democratic-leading politicians are centrist in this way, while others are progressive, there's division. So the question is, who really is in control, and what are they trying to achieve? It's the super wealthy people, the ones that you don't see on the media. And when they do show their faces, they try to cast themselves. A lot of them try to cast themselves as good guys, benevolent, like almost kind of like they're trying to cast themselves as kind of holy, pious figures. But my advice to that is don't trust them. Seriously, don't trust them. Because what are they trying to achieve? They're trying to maintain the status quo, just like the wealthy seemed to try to do during the Great Depression, before Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office and started implementing his changes. The wealthy, the top 1%, by the way, that's who I'm referring to. They are trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve by implementing small measures in stages over the period of years, decades, in order to try and squeeze more wealth from the lower social classes. If you're familiar, their way of thinking is, if you're familiar with the phrase do more with less, that seems to be kind of part of what these people are trying to do. It translates to, how much can we get away with? And this game, and I call it a game, it really is genius social engineering if you think about it. However, I don't want to use the word genius because it implies someone who's smart enough to think outside the box for a good cause. These people aren't trying to achieve a good cause. They're trying to achieve a bad one. And there's an alternative name for genius: sociopath. Yes. Sociopaths are people who think outside the box to achieve bad, selfish causes. So the resolve. What do we do? What can we do about this? I've been thinking about this a lot. Well, the first step, at least, have enough people become aware of this. And actually, the wealthy establishment seems to be aware that would need to happen on behalf of the lower classes, and they're trying to fight it. And there's certain skewed media platforms who are aware of this attempt, and they've started the war on the truth, the war on facts. I've seen a lot of that in recent years, and it seems to be a big attempt to try and keep people in the dark by sowing confusion. So we just need to put forth a better effort to have more people than even today become aware of what's going on. The next thing we need to do is really try and form a concise agenda. And I think we really need to try and avoid political branding, labels like Republican, Democrat, Christian, patriotic, socialist. I noticed there's just a lot of branding, a lot of, team so-and-so. But the less branding we have, or the less branding we can engage in, the better, I think, because I've seen a lot of sociopaths in the past and present, and on both sides of the aisle, using these labels to justify corrupt actions. Going back even as far as the Middle Ages, greedy kings of the Middle Ages, greedy, selfish, tyrant kings and monarch figures, have claimed religion and divine right as cause for things like war and a lot of measures of tyranny. More recently, Stalin claiming to be communist socialist to justify coming to power in the Soviet Union, and then turning around and doing things, committing actions as atrocious as actions committed in Nazi Germany. Again, this all goes back to claiming to be the good guy and then turning around and doing bad things. And it's very similar to what I was talking about before, the whole nice guy thing I was talking about recently. Someone saying, "Oh, I'm a nice guy, I have a heart full of gold." And then they turn around and start saying and doing inappropriate things. It's the same way of thinking. It's the same pattern. I went off on a tangent here. Yeah, we need to form a concise agenda. And it's okay to maybe give the agenda itself a title, maybe a coalition or something like that. But let's really try not to get too hung up on labeling ourselves if we can help it. Let's focus more on the agenda itself, not the entity. We need to focus more on the policy, not the political party title. In this case, I think we need to have a modern-day economic bill of rights, a specific list of rights covering a huge array of things, like improving workers' pay, improving working conditions, even going as far as improving negotiating power. And then also on the same list, other things like renters' rights. Think landlords versus renters, and healthcare costs. And also a really, really big provision. We really need to have a provision where the population gets to have more of a say on the prices and costs of things, like oil. I think we really need to kind of reduce our dependence on oil and shift more to green technology. Not only because it's bad for, oil's bad for the environment, but also oil is not a renewable energy. At some point we are going to run out, and if we don't have a backup infrastructure in place, we are in trouble. But with that aside, that's another topic I'll probably bring up later. But really, with prices and stuff, cost of living, we really need to have more of a say in that. Inflation is caused by corporate greed. Let's not deny it. It's not the boogeyman. It's not a natural phenomenon like the weather. And no, it's not other poor people. It's not people in other demographics causing inflation. And economists can go on and on about supply and demand. And fine, but at the end of the day, with our inflation issue today, it's top-ranking business figures voluntarily choosing to raise prices without our input of essential goods and services in order to increase their profits. So, if we have maybe a little provision in place, maybe a constitutional one, where we have officially a legal right to hold, say, some sort of electoral referendum to stop a price increase and or reverse it, maybe inflation won't be as big of an issue. That's just my 2 cents. When and how to implement the agenda? Honestly, I don't know. I'm just one person. I don't know. But this is what I do know. We need to be organized. And whatever we do, we need to do it together. And most importantly, people at the top, they're going to fight back against this. They're going to shut us down. Most importantly, we need to be persistent. If we get shut down, if our movement fails, we need to get back up and we need to try again. We need to be persistent. So that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up and or leave a comment. And also, if you are so willing, hit that subscribe button. In any case, I will be making more videos soon. See you then.